Hello and welcome to the 40th episode of the Select Characters Podcast. I'm Sam Yates. I will be your host. I know, I like to think that all the ones that are end in zeros are really nice.
Yeah, milestones.
Your 20s and your 30s and your 40s are good. They're good ones. We made it this far, so congratulations us. I'm also joined here by Ryan Dildine and Christopher Anderson. What's up, fellas?
Hi.
Hey, not much.
Cool.
Playing games.
I'm back. The prodigal son returns, I guess.
Yeah, we're all very good. All very glad to have you
We
back.
have a new cast member this week.
I'm happy to be here.
Our new old cast member. Yeah, man, glad to hear you back.
Yeah, it's been a good week, right? I mean, the past couple of weeks been good to you and to us, but last week especially, because your opinion video on Cobalt did pretty damn well.
Yeah, that was pretty
Very
cool.
well.
Yeah, we've got a
Very
bunch of new
well.
people here, so welcome. Glad to have you on board. I hope that after this podcast, you'll still be subscribed to us.
Welcome, listeners, new and old. Let's move on forward. Let's talk a little bit about what we have been playing. And it has been another excellent week for video games. Let's talk a little bit about what we have been playing. Let's start with Chris, man. Let's celebrate your triumphant return.
Thank you. Glad to be here. I haven't really been playing an awful lot of games because I was sick for the better part of the last 3 weeks, but I did play a couple of them. One of them I had to play for a review, and that is Rise of the Tomb Raider on PC. And that game's all right, man. It's good in a lot of places, and it might be even great in some places. The only problem, well, one of the two problems I have with it, one, it's not my kind of game at all. Like the whole platforming thing, like find switch Z so you can open door A so you can then trudge along to mountain B to get treasure Z or something. You know, I don't particularly like that stuff, like the puzzle platforming thing, which is one of the reasons why I didn't really like Darksiders 2 as well, for instance. But the presentation is fantastic. It looks really, really great. The animation is near perfect, in my opinion. The only thing I really, really, really hate about the game itself is the voice acting of Lara herself. Because even though she is voiced by an English person, it sounds like she's been instructed to do a British voice or an English accent by way of America. It sounds so posh that it borders on parody. It's not like it feels like you're not watching a modern action hero doing a bunch of amazingly dangerous stuff. She sounds like Shakespeare at the Globe Theatre, and it's terrible. It is absolutely deplorable how bad it is.
Wasn't Lara Croft born into high society? Isn't that her story?
Yeah, that may very well be, but I know of no English person who speaks like that. And, you know, due to my geographical location and my family living in England and Scotland and having a lot of English friends and going over there quite often and stuff,
You've heard a couple English accents.
Yeah, you could say that in my day I have heard a couple of English and Scottish and Irish accents, and her accents, what? It's grating, and it's actually to the point where you have, what do they call it? Yeah, base camps, basically, like little fire pits where you can save your game and stuff, and every time you go there and you spend points in your skill trees and you upgrade your weapons and stuff, Lara just sounds off in the background, spouting exposition at you, and it just makes me want to click out of the fucking menu quicker because that accent is terrible. It's just bad.
That sounds like a real damn shame, I guess.
Well, you probably won't have that problem. Like, if you're not all that familiar with English accents, you probably won't mind. It's just grating to someone like me. And I did confirm this with a couple of my English friends. Like, is this just me? I mean, is this actually, close to how it actually should be? Or, you know? And all of them said, no, I've never heard anyone speak like this. She overpronounces stuff in the most hilarious way. And it's just grating. But yeah, if that's the biggest problem I have with the game, it's still a pretty small problem. It's a good game. I like what they're doing with the reboot of the Tomb Raider franchise.
Did you get to play any of the survival mode?
Yeah, a little bit, which is quite fun. It's just score attack basically, but it's fun. Plus, she doesn't really talk all that much in that mode, which is great.
That's what I've heard the most like good stuff about is kind of trying to get more treasures or money or something, but yet like you can leave anytime you want, but at the same time,
yeah, it adds a ton of replayability to the game, which is great because the mechanics are very enjoyable, especially using your bow and arrow and stuff and sneaking around is quite good. The way that she communicates the presence of enemies in the direct vicinity is really smart as well, because there's little to no HUD outside of contextual stuff. So you don't really have the advantage of a HUD telling you where enemies are and stuff. So Lara crouches down, like automatically starts sneaking when there's enemies close to her, which I thought was pretty great, like a very good in-universe explanation for communicating information to the player.
Yeah, that's better than some red exclamation marks or something.
Yeah, like you do have those, but those are very minimal. So overall it's an enjoyable experience. I still need to play through the Baba Yaga DLC stuff. I also need to do a review for that one. But I'm enjoying myself. It's pretty good.
Neat, man. You're playing that on the PC, right? That's what you said.
Yes. Definitely the best platform to play that on, because that game is beautiful.
Got to get those Tress effects. Hairworks? Tress effect. I don't remember which one.
Yeah, I think they call it True Hair in this one, but it's essentially Tress
True Hair,
effects.
nice.
It kills your FPS, so I've got it switched off. But it looks really pretty when it's switched on. It's quite funny. This is probably a bug, but when you switch it off, it just looks like Lara's got a fan on her face at all times. Even when she's indoors and other characters, their hair is just behaving normally. Like there's no wind there, so the hair is just hanging down. And then you look at Lara Croft, and her ponytail is just slamming her face constantly.
That is pretty funny.
It is. It's cool. Weird, but it gives all those serious cutscenes and the serious monologues and stuff a bit of a less serious tone, really.
Yeah, just a little bit of levity. Nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Anything else you've been playing?
Firewatch I've been playing, which is a narrative walking simulator where you play a fire watcher somewhere in the Rocky Mountains, I believe, or is it? What's the other national park? Yellowstone. I think it's somewhere around there. I don't know. Like I don't really live there. I don't know how America works. But your job is basically to make sure that the entire thing doesn't burn down to the fucking ground, which you're doing a pretty terrible job at, really. But watching the fires is not really why you're there. It's a narrative experience. You build this relationship with your boss, who is in a different tower far away from where you are. And as you walk around and do stuff and do some fire watching, you're just talking to somebody else on the other side of the line. And I find the voice acting to be the most natural voice acting I've heard in a very long time. It's very well done. You can actually hear their relationship developing, and it's just great to listen to.
It sounds neat. Is it bad if you see a fire but you don't report it?
Oh,
I mean, like, can you lose?
It's not really an object of. No, it's not really what you're doing in the game anyway. There is a big fire. You reference it a couple of times. Like, you're not supposed to put out the fires. You're just supposed to watch them and call them in when they happen. Yeah, you're literally just watching the fires. There's nothing you can do. You leave the fires to more capable people who you never see or speak to. It's not like the reason why you're there or your job is not really all that important. What's important is developing the relationship between you and Delilah, your boss on the walkie-talkie.
Okay. Well, I guess that sounds interesting. I mean, it's really... A game like that is going to be all about stuff that you can't tell us here in this forum, right? So.
Yeah, especially because it's like a 4 or 5 hour experience. So anything I will say about the story will probably spoil a significant part of it because there's not a whole lot of it. But it's a nice, tranquil experience, and it looks gorgeous, especially the lighting effects and stuff. It's an amazing looking game, and I would recommend that. I would recommend the game to anyone who likes, relaxed, calm walking games with a heavy focus on dialogue and just pretty pictures and a great soundtrack, because that's exactly what it is. And it might be a bit too expensive at the price point, because I think it's $20 or something on Steam right now. So I'd suggest waiting until it goes around the $10 or the $15 mark, and then it will be a fantastic experience.
Cool. Well, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah. I played a little bit of XCOM, XCOM 2.
How'd you like it?
I didn't. I refunded it.
Interesting.
I had a myriad of technical issues that shouldn't be there. Like my computer isn't the best one out there, but that game shouldn't run as badly as it does on this system. Yet it does. Plus, the game's pace is ridiculously slow. And I don't know if Sam can back this up, but if my mind serves me right, then this game's pace is much slower than in XCOM Enemy Unknown.
It feels that way. I played that game so long ago, I don't remember, but that's always been a major sticking point for me is when they put all those little delays in there that they don't need. I fixed it with mods. I turned off all the cinematic camera stuff. I downloaded what mods I could. I'm sure that there's more coming down the pipeline at some point. But it's funny because you look at the mod and it's just a list of like stripped out the 1 second pause from this, stripped out the 2 second pause from this. And it's like, why were those things even there in the first place?
Yeah, like the animations just take so damn long as well. And it doesn't need to take that long at all. There's no point for that delay to be there.
Right, and I assume it had something to do with them trying to create suspense or something like that. But I absolutely agree with your point. And even outside of those, which you can tell are a design choice, they wanted this to ring a little louder, so they put a little hesitation in front of it, etc. There's pauses that almost don't make any sense. Like you finish your turn and it just sits there.
Yeah.
And nothing's happening. And it's just sitting there. And then the alien's turn starts. That stuff is extremely frustrating. But as you get farther into the game and you have more things you can do and you have more options at your disposal, that kind of fades backwards a little bit because when you're thinking about what you want to do next turn, you have more abilities. So it's not a given that, okay, I'm going to try to shoot this guy. It's like, well, I could try this with this. What if I did this first, then this? And it helps, but that still doesn't entirely get rid of the horrible slowness and plotting pacing of that game in general.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm willing to forgive it because I like it a lot.
I did like the concealment mechanic, which allows you to set up little ambushes and stuff. I thought that was really neat.
It's a good, I agree. It's a good way to get those first few turns out of the way and stop you from very slowly leapfrogging your way forward because the movement isn't the fun part about that game, right? Like the fun part is the engagement.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the turn timers and the concealment sort of come at it from both ends, I think, and give you more engagement and less just moving.
Yeah. I probably won't ever reach the later stages of the game because I refunded that game. I wasn't really having fun within the acceptable period of time, so I just asked for my money back. It's not my type of game. I can understand why people like it, but it makes it even harder to get into than the first one, I think. And it's just a couple of very odd design choices that just stood in the way of me having fun.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can see that. I mean, like, I don't fault you for that at all. I think it's a thing, I'm just willing to make the concessions right now, but I think it's a thing that later on mods will be able to fix, and maybe they'll put some patches down, and just in general, I think they'll be able to improve it.
Yeah, and if that point ever comes, I will probably rebuy it during a sale or something like that.
Cool. That's I'm gonna slide right in here and tell you that is the game that's the only game I've been playing this week.
Right.
So yeah, I don't have a lot to say on that. I think I'm almost done with my first playthrough on Veteran Iron Man.
Wow.
So I'm debating between waiting to start the next one until there's a whole bunch of cool mods and stuff like that, or just jumping right into it. I don't know, but I definitely feel like it's about time to diversify and play a little of something else.
Right.
But Ryan's probably been playing some video games. What you been playing, Ryan?
Well, I mean, a lot of Cobalt, which people can check out on youtube.com/selectcharacters. Check out our game club there. I've been playing that mostly this week. And then also I played a lot of Shadow of Mordor, which I talked a little bit about last week, but I didn't. Last week I didn't feel like I had a great grasp of it. And I started the story over because I was just, like I said, I was getting to, like, I'd run into a captain and then I would just be swarmed and by like 30 orcs and I'd die. So I was like, man, why is this happening? So I started the story over and it's going a lot better this time. I've kind of figured out how to, sneak around better and get to different objectives without having to fight 45 guys on my way there. And after I figured that out, I'm really hooked on that game. The Nemesis system is awesome. I think it's one of the best things I've seen in a game in a very long time, because it makes me want to play the game. Like I know I'm fighting an AI, but I still hate that dude and I want to kill him. So
yeah, that game is really great with that. I like the Nemesis system because it essentially makes the game harder for you the more you fail, which I thought was incredible. Like you've got an extra motivation to not suck at that game, because sucking means that game will get progressively worse.
Yeah, it's an interesting, I don't know, with that, I guess that'd be negative reinforcement. It's an interesting case of that, that, because, I mean, usually if a game is just too hard for you, you just put it down. But I have like vendettas against all these guys that have been killing me. So it's, and they get way up in power and then they're untouchable for a while. So that makes you want to go kill them even more.
Yeah. Can you take over other orcs yet?
Oh, man, I don't think so. I think I'm approaching that part. Because I had to start over, so I'm still kind of at the beginning of the story.
Right.
But I don't think. I mean, unless it prompts you. Does it prompt you like when you learn that skill?
Oh yeah. They do this whole song and dance when you get that ability, and then you can actually use other orcs to infiltrate the bodyguards of larger, higher up orcs.
Okay.
So you do this whole power play thing. It's so much fun. It's so much fun to do that.
Yeah, I'm excited to get there. I remember Enrique was talking about that a little bit last week. I mean, I'm excited to get to that point. Everything so far has been very challenging. I think the game's just right up to that line of being hard, but not too hard.
Right.
And the Nemesis system is cool, and you look at it and you say, okay, cool, that's awesome. But then they start letting you play with it, and they let you start sort of doing things within it and changing things and being able to have more agency in the, I guess the tree of the orcs, like their command structure. And then it just starts to get cooler and cooler, basically, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like the way that you can't just go to the top of the food chain and kill like the strongest Uruk, You really have to work through the ranks and like work your way up to a guy because, I mean, just yesterday I was trying to fight a captain who was, his power level was really high and he was kind of up on the food chain. I went to go fight him and I just got smashed.
Yeah.
And so I just really like that about that game. Like it's like you really got to kind of scrape your way through it, get by killing each captain as you go up. And I really appreciate it. I think the Nemesis system, like I said, is one of the best things I've seen in a game in a very long time.
Yeah, I'm sad they're not really using that system in other games because it seems like that would have a lot of practical application in other games, right?
Well, I was thinking, I mean, if a couple other games, I'm still playing Sleeping Dogs and Black Flag, if those two games had a Nemesis system, which I know they came out before Shadow of Mordor, but
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, the point is you put that more into this type of game and people are going to start playing it more.
Yeah.
Not that they aren't, but they will play more.
If only more people played Black Flag, I would still be able to play that multiplayer.
Yeah, that's sad.
World's smallest violin.
Well, on that downer note, you guys want to move on and talk about some topics?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's start off with a very simple question. Does something need to innovate in order to be good? Because I don't think it does have to innovate in order to be good. There's plenty of stuff out there that doesn't really do anything new, that doesn't really try anything particularly exciting, but it's still very enjoyable. So let's open the floor first to see if we have some dissenting opinions here. So let's go. What do you guys think?
I feel like it definitely helps, but I don't know if it's necessary.
Oh, yeah.
And also I think that I can't think of a game that actually didn't innovate in some way, even if it was very small and all they did was change a little bit about a combat system or add a tiny new mechanic. It seems like with the exception of direct sequels, the games sort of come to the table with at least one or two of their own ideas. Now maybe that's not innovation because I guess you could say you could just pull something from another game and add it to yours, and Bob's your uncle, but
yeah. From what I've heard and from what I've read in reviews and discussions and stuff, innovation is usually considered to be something that pushes the medium forward, which is something that quite a lot of things actually do, but a lot of things also don't really do.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a different thing. It's not, okay, they added a sort of RPG progression to a first-person shooter. Like, that's where I get a little fuzzy about it, right? Is that innovation because shooters didn't have that before? Or do you need to do something?
For the sake of conversation, let's just go with yes.
Yeah, I would say it is.
Yeah.
So just by changing something a little bit and creating something new, yeah, I guess that is innovative in a way, but it's not like the actual action itself isn't, but putting it somewhere new, also innovative. And so,
yeah, or what do you think of creating a new standard by including something that wasn't there before?
yeah, you're right. You have to call that innovative.
Yeah.
Somebody had to think of a way.
And not everything does that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I mean, I think it depends on what we're calling good, first of all, because I mean, if say every, I don't know, let's just say Assassin's Creed, for example, say every game nothing was innovated, but it was still a serviceable game and it was still mildly entertaining. You know, every single year they just didn't change anything. It was the same formula as the first Assassin's Creed. Does that game, I mean, I feel like it would lose its good status. You know, when it first came out, yeah, it's good, but if you keep doing the same thing over and over, there's a diminishing return, you know?
It depends on what you're coming to the series for. And with respect to, or in respect to Assassin's Creed personally as a franchise, right? I mean, you could argue that Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood and Revelations, they hardly introduce new mechanics, and the ones that they do, they're not really worth mentioning. I think there's like a tower defense thing in Brotherhood, I believe. I still like each and every single game of those three games of 2, Brotherhood and Revelations. I still love each and every one of them, even though they don't really innovate anything. They don't really do anything to shake up the entire formula too much. In my opinion, those games are still really good. But they're not innovative.
So the status quo can be considered good, maintaining the status quo.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's done so convincingly, then in the end, all that matters. If you're having fun, you're having fun, regardless of how many things are included in the thing that you're having fun with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true. But you also sort of run into that human nature thing where you can only do the same thing so many times.
Yeah, you're gonna get burnt out on that good. You know, like if one game's coming out with the same game every year and technically it's good, the 10th time you play it, you're not gonna think it's good anymore, or you're not gonna think it's as good as the third time you played that system. You know?
Yeah, but is it objectively getting worse, or is it just because you're getting used to it?
I think in comparison to other games that are innovating, yes, it's getting worse because it's not keeping up with everything else in the medium, I guess.
Yeah, but we're not really comparing non-innovative games to innovative games directly, are we? It's just are the non-innovative games good enough on their own?
Really?
Even if they don't change things up.
I think it has a shelf life. If you're not innovating, I mean, expect people to stop playing your game after a certain amount of iterations.
And don't you end up really sort of asking this question in a game like a franchise that has a lot of sequels?
Yeah.
Because a game can come out...
There could be games that stand on their own that don't really do anything different or anything new from other games within that genre.
Sure. That makes sense, yeah. But you still have whatever they decided to bring to the table, like their own characters or their own IP or something like that. Maybe that doesn't count in the innovative sense if you're talking about more mechanical kind of designs and things.
Yeah.
But I think you got to do something.
Well, if we're going down that route, maybe BioShock is a good example of that. A game that doesn't really do anything spectacular in terms of its mechanics, like at all. It's essentially just it's a box standard shooter, and the mechanics aren't all that great. But the presentation is fairly unique. I forgot where I was going with this.
But I'd be willing to call that an innovative storytelling technique or something like that. I believe that they do innovate their presentation or the way that they bring it to the table in that series.
Yeah. I don't know where I was going with that.
Yeah. I think it's so rare to see that big sort of tectonic shift that I would consider to be a true innovation, something new and radically different. It does happen from time to time. Ryan was talking about the Nemesis system when we were talking about what we've been playing. I would consider that incredibly innovative.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something that unfortunately enough did not catch on in the way that many of us hoped it would.
And with regards to that level of innovation, I think it can elevate a game. It can bring it up to somewhere maybe it wouldn't have been without it.
It takes it from good to outstanding, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Because without the Nemesis system, Shadow of Mordor would have just been Assassin's Creed in Middle-earth, essentially. Well, it's true.
Yeah, that's very true. They're very reminiscent of each other.
So they don't have to innovate to be
aspects.
good, but they should. I think that the best games are the ones that innovate. It's not...
Yeah,
So I don't know exactly what the word is.
Is that something that they all should do? They all should strive to change what we consider to be video games?
No, I don't think so, because, I mean, I think there are games that are they've been good at making a good game via the tried and true method.
Right.
And I would almost say that you can still sell a ton of copies without innovation. I think that innovation can also be a huge risk because you don't know how it's going to be well received. Yeah. You want to try something new. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. And that's what I see a lot in the AAA space, right? Is kind of a lack of innovation, starting to stagnate a little bit because they want their sure things.
Right. Can you, off the top of your head, name something that, in your opinion, pushed the entire medium forward?
Quake 3.
I was going to say the Dota mod.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that changed what we consider to be an RTS, didn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, it spawned a new genre, and it spawned a genre that became unimaginably popular in just a matter of years, and it also kind of killed a previous genre, two, I guess, with MMOs and RTSs. Like MOBAs had a really big impact on the player bases of those two games.
How did it kill MMOs, in your opinion?
Well, I think that's kind of a longer story. I think that MMOs, when they first came out and were very popular, they were new to us because we had never experienced a world so big, and we had never experienced like that kind of maybe not experienced. I'd say we hadn't experienced that kind of progression.
Right.
And I think once we became disenchanted with that, we still liked that progression of a hero, but we didn't want to dive into this huge world and spend 500 hours advancing that hero. We wanted to jump into something quicker, but something that still allowed that much, that much room for decision making about what you're going to do with your character.
Yeah,
I don't know if you can really compare MOBAs to MMOs, even though they are massively multiplayer and online. They definitely are, but they're not an MMO.
Yeah, if you wanted to tell me that MOBAs
in any way, shape, or form,
I think that's a conversation we can have. But I don't think that I don't think they had that much of an impact on the MMO. I think you come there for a different thing. I get what you're pointing at with the character progression and stuff, but I would say that is why something like Diablo or Torchlight came to be. I wouldn't really put that on the shoulders of MOBAs.
Yeah, I actually agree with you now.
Yeah, I think if there's one game that has single-handedly killed or is single-handedly killing the MMO genre, then it's World of Warcraft, because it's just so all-encompassing, It saturated the market all on its own, essentially.
And I mean, so there's a good example, right? Because before World of Warcraft, we had EverQuest. And what did World of Warcraft do to EverQuest? It innovated. It took its formulas and changed them, added its own things on it, and created an entire groundswell and genre shift.
Yeah, it cut the fat, essentially, and what was left was a very lean and clean experience that just was more open to a wider variety of people.
So that's kind of where I land. I mean, I don't think it's necessary. I like the games we have, and I think a good, clean, polished game that takes everything that we already know and just makes a good one, I think that's fine. But I like to see innovation. I wish there was more.
Yeah, I think, to my mind, the last really, really big thing that happened was the industry's widespread adoption of the open world format. Because look at the amount of open world games we have, and look how many more that are coming out, and how much bigger they are getting with every new game coming out.
And maybe that's an example of a way where not only is the concept innovative, but because it's fresh, there's also a lot of wiggle room in there to be innovative within those confines. Because they're learning more about what makes an open world great, how to do it better, and we've come a long way from like Morrowind and Red Dead Redemption, I guess you could say, with its dynamic events that happen. And then you land on somewhere like Metal Gear, which the newest one could be open world, I guess you could say, but it's not really because of the way the mission structure is designed. But I would consider that an innovative way to approach the open world formula.
Yeah, so give players. Yeah, I think this generation and last generation, they've been very focused on player choice and having you choose how to approach the game's missions and mechanics, which I think is like with the new technology that just give you more breathing room and more freedom to choose how you want to experience the game that you're playing.
And
which I think is a great new trend, actually.
And an innovative trend, right? And so do you have to innovate to be good? No, absolutely not. Does it help? 100% yes.
You won't be making waves by rehashing stuff that has been done before. You will make a lasting impression on the industry, one that might last for years to come if you flip the entire board around and try something completely different.
Yeah, but I think also that it needs to be addressed that innovation, like Sam said, is really risky and it can ruin your game. You know, if you think something is very innovative and you put it in and it's crappy, you know, nobody likes it.
Yeah, which is why a lot of AAA developers
don't really,
yeah, they don't really want to, because let's not forget that making AAA games costs millions upon millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So if you try something completely new, something that might work out but may also not work out, you're potentially risking your entire company in the process.
Yeah,
which
so
is
that's why we can't.
Not a lot of boards want to do.
That's why we can't, you know, just be like, oh, innovation's good, always innovate, because it's like, nah, not necessarily. But
do non-innovative games serve a purpose then?
Yes, very much, because they find out what doesn't work, which a lot of times is just as important.
Yeah, or to keep money rolling in the industry.
There's still plenty of time to sort of shed the fat on those mechanics, and there's plenty of time to turn that coal into a diamond without having to do something brand new. Sometimes you can just take what's already there and what you already know works and just hone it to a razor's edge.
Yeah, which is Blizzard's entire business model, essentially. Look at all the games that they've been bringing out. They're all built on the shoulders of giants, essentially. They've just been taken under advisement, and everything that might be considered, fat, they cut away. And what you're left with is just something that is distilled to the purest essentials, which is why their games are so popular.
Blizzard is absolutely a great example of that, like, second mover advantage. You're doing something that's already been done before. You're just doing it extremely well.
Yeah, you're using knowledge acquired over the years to approach a tired concept and breathe new life into it. That is an art form in of itself.
And
really.
I think a lot of their games are very good, even though they don't innovate all that much.
Yeah, so I mean, is innovation required to make a good game? No. Is it required to make an outstanding game? I'd say yes. And I don't think any developer should have any walls built up against innovating, you know? Like, if you're going to create a game and you say, we want to do the tried and true, we want to make it good, it's never going to be any more than that, I think. I think you hit just a ceiling.
I think you're right. So, I think that's good.
So, here's a question. Just to wrap things up, what do you guys think is the most innovative? What do you guys think is? Let me rephrase this. What innovation do you guys think is really gonna explode and drive the medium forward? Say from like this point on, because I for one think it's procedural generation.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Man, you took mine.
Okay. Well, every time I play an open world game, I think, man, this would be way better if it was procedurally generated.
Yeah, which is another reason why I sincerely hope that No Man's Sky delivers on everything that it promises. Because if it does, then procedural generation is going to be a thing that could potentially give us endless content if that technology gets developed any further, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, every one of my favorite games, I think, when I think about it, it'd be better if it was procedurally. Not everyone, but a lot of them.
Well, there's something to be said for the designed experience. I mean, you can't entirely say that everything would be better if it was procedurally generated. There's something to be said,
that's not true.
To have a person carve a level out of marble. That's still a beautiful thing.
Well, yeah, technically, yes. But people are still working within certain parameters when they're designing something. Why not have an algorithm work within those same parameters and see what you get?
You might have just blown my mind.
I do so occasionally, I think. So let's ask that question for the last time. Does something need to innovate in order to be good? No, it just needs to be procedural generated.
Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about video games that are based on movies, or video games that are based on television, cartoons, books, whatever, wherever you want to pull it from. Why is it that sometimes, I have to say sometimes, why is it that sometimes these experiences fall short of what we expect from video games? Why does it seem like when we see a video game based on a movie, we automatically assume that it's not going to be very good? Where is that disconnect? Where does that come from?
It's because a lot of those video game movies of old, right? They are made by people who have very little in common with the source material. I've actually seen an extra credits video on this recently. And he said the reason why video game movies have a chance of being good now is because they are being made by people who grew up playing those games. And they have more respect and more knowledge about that, about the things that they're trying to adapt.
So that makes it more than like a fan service cash-in.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually made by people who love the source material. For instance, the World of Warcraft movie is being directed by a guy who absolutely loves the franchise. So there's a bigger chance of it becoming something great. Although, on the other hand, you've got people like Uwe Boll, the German Waste of Space, who makes games based on video games almost exclusively, and they're all terrible. So it doesn't always, this argument doesn't always work.
Mm-hmm.
But what about in the opposite direction? What about video games based on movies?
Video games based? No. I in my experience, it's gone very poorly.
Not always.
The franchise I have the most experience with is Lord of the Rings. And, Lord of the Rings movies came out, and then you had Battle for Middle-earth, Battle for Middle-earth 2, Rise of the Witch King. You had the games based directly on the movies.
Yeah.
And then there's been a lot of Lord of the Rings titles, and I thought they were all kind of bad. Even my favorite in that period was Battle for Middle-earth, and I thought, if I had to give it out of like 100%, I'd give it like a 80. It wasn't knocking my socks off, and I think Shadow of Mordor is the first one that I've played where I felt like these people have their own vision of what Middle-earth is. I don't think it
everything
matched.
just screams Peter Jackson about the way that it's presented.
Well, true. Their own vision of Peter Jackson's version. But what struck me about that game, the orcs and the Uruks don't necessarily look like the ones in the movies. They're I guess derivative is the right term, but this all goes to say it's taken this long for a good Lord of the Rings game to come out, a really good one, and I think that it kind of ties in with what you were saying, that you have people who are passionate about that movie and that narrative world now that are making the games. And I think it's showing. I think it's apparent.
Yeah. They've got people who actually make the movies who are also involved with the video game versions or the adaptations or the derivatives of those movies. And for instance, Vin Diesel played in Riddick, also produced Dark Athena and Escape from Butcher Bay. Both really good films. Butcher Bay is better than Dark Athena, but you get what I mean, right?
Good movies and good games.
Yeah, definitely. Good actor as well, as an aside.
I think where you end up falling short on that is that it's either because you've already seen the movie, and then the video game is just a plot point recreation of that.
Right.
So unless you really wanted to play particular scenes from that movie, you're not really getting anything out of it because it feels like it's not a fresh experience, even though it actually is. And the other problem is what used to happen back when games were still on carts is that they would just try to latch on to whatever movie was about to come out or whatever show was popular and just shovel something on there, I guess hoping that grandparents would buy it for their kids because they like the show or the movie or whatever.
Yeah, and then you get games like Charlie's Angels on the GameCube, which was terrible.
Right, exactly. Just trying to cash in just a little bit more. It's the equivalent of selling a toy or something. They just made a video game real quick.
Yeah. Sometimes it's even more egregious than that. Remember a game called Sea Dogs got rebranded to Pirates of the Caribbean? to fit the movie theme.
Oh yeah.
It was terrible.
Right. I mean, that's not to say they're all bad. I mean, True Lies was pretty good. GoldenEye's pretty great. It doesn't always turn out bad. It just seems like, in general, that you see so much more of them turn out bad than good.
Well, I think that's because, I mean, like you said, many of them are kind of scene for scene, just playthroughs almost. And you run into a problem when you're trying to go from a movie to a game, in that games try to frustrate narrative progression and movies do the opposite. Like, movies want to keep going forward, and games don't. They try to keep going forward, but they stall you at these points so you can finish these objectives. And so if you've already seen the movie and you're trying to play through and you're getting hung up on this thing, it becomes really frustrating. And it's like, why? I mean, I've already seen this. What's the point of me even playing through this when I know exactly what's going to happen?
Yeah. I'm looking through a list of video games made based on movies, and did you know that there's a Mean Girls game for the DS?
Great. I'd play that.
Shocked.
Get in, loser. We're going shopping. I love that movie, but I bet I would not like that video game.
It's a great movie. It's fantastic. It's hilarious. That game doesn't look all that great, no.
I guess it's easy for them to maybe market to kids. Maybe that's where a lot of the kind of shovelware comes from. Hey, there's another animated Disney movie coming out. Let's get a video game to go along with that, because we know that little kids have DSs and they like video games too. And maybe the cost of developing something like that, because it doesn't have to be good. Maybe that's it. Maybe the problem is that to the people they're selling it to, it doesn't have to be good.
Yeah, I mean, to an 8-year-old, they don't really care,
Yeah, all they need to care about is brand recognition, essentially. But you'd think that it would be sort of easier to adapt, to make video games adaptations, because the writing's already there. The set and the setting is already there. Like, all you need to do is really focus more on the mechanics, which arguably is the hardest part of making video games.
Yeah, which I think is where a lot of them fail. Like I said, those mechanics are they are there to frustrate progression. And I just think that's where it fails. Like you know where the story's going, and to me, like when I play a movie game, unless the mechanics are outstanding, if it's something I've seen before, it's like, why am I even playing? There's no reason for me to play the mechanics because I've seen them before, or they're bad, or I want to know what happens in the movie, or I want to know what happens to the story. But if I want to know that, just watch the movie. So they've got to do something that, I guess it ties back to the last segment.
Yeah, right.
They need to do something innovative to make it worth playing. That's because that's all it relies on, is what can you do that's new, because we already know the story.
Yeah. Or you have to do something that is so faithful to the source material that it makes you feel like you're actually in the movie.
Yeah. And or you can just make shit up, which is what the Battle for Middle-earth franchise ended up doing, and it was a shit show.
I did think that, going back to the Lord of the Rings games, the Two Towers games on the PlayStation 2, the GameCube, I thought they were really well done. Like, they were bog standard hack and slash games. But that game did a really great job at transitioning from movie clips to gameplay seamlessly and put you right in the middle of the biggest action scenes in the movies. It wasn't a great game by any stretch of the imagination, but I think that was a really good adaptation of a movie.
Did they actually had scenes from the movie?
Yeah. Like they had cut scenes that were lifted directly from the DVD, but they transitioned seamlessly from movie clips to gameplay.
I don't think that's the worst idea.
No,
I mean, obviously it does fall short in the, like, okay, I already know what's going to happen sense, but in the extent of there's a giant battle, what if I could play one of the characters in that? That sounds kind of neat.
Yeah, and it did exactly that. That game accomplished what it set out to do, and it did so adequately, which is why I think that it's actually a pretty good video game adaptation.
Is it fair to say that overall, if you saw a movie come out and then you saw the game based on it, are there enough bad examples to say, okay, I can make a decent guess that this is not going to be very good?
Yes.
I don't know. I like to look at stuff on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, the generalization
you never really
thing.
know.
You really don't. And it's not like we don't have access to information now. I mean, we would know if the game was bad.
Yeah, I was going to say, the reason I say yes so quickly is because it's very easy to find out if that game is good or bad.
Are we seeing less? Are we seeing less video games based on movies now than we used to?
I think so. We've had a couple of good ones. Shadow of Mordor is a good example. Alien Isolation is also a very good one because that game is apparently very popular. I haven't played it yet, but people keep telling me that it's very faithful to the source material.
Yeah, I'd say they did a good job because they pulled from a universe instead of pulling from an actual movie.
I think that always works better. I think that's the key. Pull from the universe, not the movie.
Well, I'll tell you this much. I actually want to play Sharknado, the video game now.
I mean, I understand making a game based on the movie because, like we said, it is kind of cool to be able to play out a certain character, in their role. But also, like we said earlier, it's got to be innovative to pull that off correctly. Because if not, it's just a frustrating game, and then you get to watch scenes from the movie in the cutscenes.
Yeah, we're getting a pretty big name movie adaptation of a pretty storied franchise, and that's Ratchet and Clank. That is getting a movie adaptation, which is looking quite good, and it's getting a video game adaptation of the movie adaptation of the video game. So I'm wondering how that'll turn out.
Oh, they went all the way on that one.
Yeah, well, full circle.
Yeah, that'll be That'll be an interesting experiment. I don't think that's ever been done before.
It's just going to keep looping. It's a self-sustaining.
Right. I wonder if we're going to get an Assassin's Creed game based on the Assassin's Creed movie, which is based on the Assassin's Creed universe.
Are they making an Assassin's Creed movie now?
Yeah, Michael Fassbender's in it. They're actually shooting it right now. It's supposed to come out, I think, at the end of this year.
I think if there's any video game that I had faith would be good, it's Assassin's Creed.
Yeah, and that franchise and that universe seems ripe for a Hollywood adaptation, doesn't it?
And yeah, it fits just so perfectly into like a cool period-based series of action movies about a cool topic, like about assassins. Like, how can you get cooler than that?
Right. I guess before we finish this up, maybe we could do a round table and see if we have some wishes for video games that we want to see adapted to the silver screen. For me, it would probably be a movie or a movie franchise based on BioShock, because that seems like a world that would translate really well to film. Like, don't make it about the actual games, but I would love for them to set it during the first game, but before the game actually starts, so you see the fall of Rapture. Essentially, that would be an amazing film, at least in my opinion.
Yeah,
I gotta go with The Witcher.
Oh yes, well they did make a TV show about that in the 90s. I think they made a movie based on that show as well. I'm not sure about that one, but they definitely made a show called The Hexer, and it's terrible.
The parts I like about that game the most would make an excellent movie. The branching dialogue stuff I don't really care that much about, and the mechanics of playing the game I don't care that much about, but I love the world, and I love the story that they're trying to tell, and I think as a movie that would really, really shine for me. Yeah,
definitely. So what about you, Ryan?
I'm looking through my Steam list right now. I think a Borderlands movie would be really, really cool.
Oh God, yes. I mean, I've seen Deadpool now, which is that sort of humor essentially, and it could definitely work. It could definitely work.
Going off of Deadpool, I was also going to say Saints Row seems like it would be a good movie if they kept it in line, like with the tone of Deadpool.
Well, yeah, you can't really do it any other way, can you? Because that franchise now basically turns into the video game variant of Deadpool. It's insane. It's insane, especially Get Out of Hell. It's just balls to the walls insanity.
I think Saints Row the Third would be the best one to base a movie around, or maybe just that universe, you know? Yeah, I think those two. I think out of those two, Borderlands would be the best, because that I could almost just watch Borderlands cutscenes all day anyways.
Oh yeah, definitely. So if you could propose a role to a Hollywood executive, who would you have? Who would you have play Handsome Jack?
Oh God,
Michael Cera.
What? No.
Who would
They can play Creed.
Handsome Jack. Who would play Handsome Jack?
I think I could see Deadpool. Ryan Reynolds would be really good. But I'm really biased. I'm really on a Deadpool kick right now.
Okay, let's go backwards. Movies you want to make into video games.
That is a harder decision.
Maybe that's too much.
I mean,
I'll think
they
of one.
managed to turn Battleship into a fucking movie that starred Rihanna. So everything's possible, I think.
I think,
It's tough.
I'm thinking like, for some reason this jumped into my mind. Black Hawk Down would be kind of a cool
That would be kind of cool. I was
game
thinking,
based on a movie, but more of like more as a singular experience rather than a game that, takes 10 hours to finish. Maybe it's just a 2-hour game, but you play as one of those soldiers in that situation.
Yeah.
And you just kind of play through that experience and then it ends. Maybe it's a cheaper game, maybe $10 or whatever. But yeah, that for some reason that movie jumped out in my mind.
Paul Blart, Mall Cop. I got nothing there.
I was going to say The Fifth Element, but apparently they already did that.
Cloverfield.
And it was not very good. That one wouldn't be bad. All right. Well, I guess that about wraps it up. There's not really too much to say on that anymore.
Yeah, I sincerely hope that Warcraft is a good movie, and I really hope that Assassin's Creed is also a good movie. Because we need more video game movies.
We need more good
ones.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I think if those movies are good, it'll help people take games more seriously too. Because if the movies are shitty, everyone's gonna be like, okay, whatever. Okay, nice try, video games. Better luck next year.
And that will bring us to the end of episode 40 of the Select Characters podcast. Thank you very much for tuning in this week. And we have, as always, the final order of business, and that's to pick the game club for this week. And this week, let's talk to Chris. What you want to play?
We are going to play Rayman Legends, one
Cool.
of the best platforming games I've ever played, in my opinion.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's a fantastic game. It's got a gorgeous aesthetic. It's got an even better soundtrack. It can be quite punishing, but it's a very satisfying game, and I think that we will all enjoy it. I'll certainly enjoy playing through it again.
Sounds very cool. I've heard good things. All right, so this week we're going to be playing Rayman Legends. If you want to play it with us, if you want to send in your thoughts, comments, criticisms, or miscellaneous cuss words, you can send them to selectcharacters@gmail.com. You can find us on Reddit, reddit.com/r/selectcharacters. Facebook and Twitter, iTunes, our YouTube channel, where we're starting to get more content on a regular basis. It's getting pretty cool over there, and you don't want to miss out. So go check that out, subscribe. We're around on the internet, and as always, we really appreciate it, and thank you so much for tuning in.